middle of halacha ches. No, halacha tes. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the Shulchan Aruch, collecting from all over the Gemara, like out there, the Shulchan Aruch is collecting all kinds of. Sorry, tes is a longer halacha. Yeah, it's collecting all kinds of activities that a person should refrain from for the purposes of safety, keeping oneself healthy and well, as per the Torah's instruction, guard your life. Some of these things are natural and materialistic in nature, like don't walk under a shaky ladder, or don't go on a shaky bridge, don't stand under a shaky wall, and so on. Don't drink directly from the spout of a pipe, drain pipe. You're going to swallow something that's unhealthy. Yeah. Make sure you can see the water. Things that are rational, like physical, and some are more spiritual. Certain activities that our sages tell us have high probability of negative spiritual energy, whatever they are, demons, evil spirits, and whatever you want to call them, whatever term you want to use. Yeah. But they're negative spiritual energies that are thus harmful. And we're collecting all these things, putting them in the Shulchan Aruch, because a lot of this stuff on the list comes from our Gemara in Psachim. That's why we're learning it. Yeah,
I mean, I was talking to my wife last night. She was sharing a few things, and I was wondering if there are things that we have come across in our Gemara. We will. She said like cutting your nails. Cutting your nails, there's like a specific order.
Yeah.
To cut them, but you don't just cut them all in order.
Yeah.
You
skip everyone. Yeah.
And you don't cut your nails in the same day you cut your toenails or whatever.
Same day, yeah.
That's like
those are all practices that we do. That's all practices that we do till today. Is it in this simon? I don't remember.
But it's like related to these reasons?
I believe so. Is it going to come up here?
That one may be more because of that's how they cut the nails of someone who passed away.
In order?
Yeah. Maybe. Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what she said, actually.
Oh, you're right. There's a bunch of things we don't do because that's the way they do. For example, actually, not to pour
backwards.
Not to pour backwards.
Yeah.
That's the way it's done for the dead. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's true. So I don't think it's in the simon.
Okay.
But yeah. Okay. So we're the second paragraph of halacha tes. Lo yoshev tachas marzev hayotzim min hagag. One should not sit under a drain pipe that comes out of a roof. Because shamazikim. Spiritual. Use different terminologies for these things. Sometimes the ruach ra, which literally translates as spirit, negative, bad spirit, evil spirit. Sometimes they use the word shade, which literally translates as demon. Here it's vazikim, which is like damagers, spiritual damagers. He translates here as demons also, but they're different terminologies. We already touched on this yesterday for the Gemara, that it's clear that there are different types of negative spiritual energy, and they have different names and different activities and so on. Anyway, one of these types of negative spiritual energy hangs around under the drain pipes that extend from the roof. So don't stand around there. Okay, that's not from our Gemara. The next one is from our Gemara. La yaver al mei shoifkin yochif. A person should not walk over spilt water barefoot. Right, this is our Gemara. So if you're wearing shoes, no problem. Barefoot, don't walk over spilt water. Elim kain, unless 60 steps have been taken on that water. So 30 people walk by. Or sunlight has shone upon it. This is interesting understanding. If I remember correctly, when we learned the Gemara, we understood it to mean have to wait till the next day. Right?
Where are we in the
second paragraph?
Second paragraph, yes.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, when we learned the Gemara, we understood it to mean it has to wait till the next day. But here he's saying as long as sunlight comes onto this water that's spilt, no problem to walk over it. Okay, so 3 ways so far to not be damaged by whatever negative energy exists around spilt water.
Levi.
Barefoot. Putting shoes on would protect you.
Number 2, a donkey, right?
We'll get there in a second, yeah. But actually, he doesn't mention here. One is have shoes on, not to be barefoot. Number 2, if 60 people already walked through that water or walked over it. Mm-hmm. Number 3, if it has come in contact with sunlight. 4, or he sprinkled some earth on it. Mm-hmm. 5, or he spit into it. 6. Sorry, Shim Ein Shem Echad Mikolelu. If it doesn't have any of these items, so if no one spit into it, no earth was scattered on it, no sunlight contacted it, 60 people haven't walked over it, and you're barefoot. Sorry,
If you have shoes.
Sorry, if rephrase, if it lacks either of the conditions, meaning no earth, no spit, no people walked over it, no 60 people walked over it, and no sunlight, then the negative spirit is there. And it'll hurt you if you're not wearing shoes. The negative spiritual energy hangs out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
It says you have shishim.
Yeah. That was from our Gemara. But I think you're right. Our Gemara has something about donkeys too.
Yeah, I mentioned it, like a person riding with shoes and a donkey. Then.
Yeah, but I think for some reason the donkey's not here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, continuing. V'lo yishan, this is also from our Gemara, the next one, the third paragraph of HALACHIC. V'lo yishan b'chatzer, a person should not sleep in a courtyard. B'tseil levana, in the shadow of the moon. Shal koisel hachatzer, that's of the wall in the courtyard. Right, so the moon produces a light, and if it's shining on a wall, it'll produce a shadow on the other side. Don't lie on that shadow. Why? Because shashedim, another negative spiritual energy. It's often translated as demons, but here it's called shadim. Before it's called mazikim, now it's called shadim. I'm not sure what the difference is, but there clearly are. These things called shadim, these negative spiritual energies, darkam lahalach balayla. They generally hang out at night. And when the moon is shining, they're afraid to walk around in the light. Therefore, they go in the shade. And therefore, don't sleep in the shaded areas of a courtyard at nighttime. But if the moon is on the western side of the sky, that is second half of the month, and therefore he's sleeping in a shadow that's now pointing eastward, right? Shade will go in the opposite direction the sun is, right? Of the light. Sorry, not the sun, the light, the moon. Then in Lochosh, no concern. Sorry, no, this is the first half of the month. The
western side is the first half.
It's the first half of the month, and therefore if the shade is produced to the east, no problem to sleep there. So basically, second half of the month, don't sleep in the shade of the moon. Good. Baruch Hashem, we're all indoors, so we don't suffer from this issue.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're camping, you have an issue. I don't know.
If you're not near a wall.
Right.
If you're in your tent or in open the air.
You could be shaded by trees, but that's not walls.
Yeah, it seems like it's a wall specifically. Yeah.
Walls. Yeah.
Next paragraph of Halacha 9. A whole list of stuff not to do. Some comes from our Gemara, some doesn't. One should not stand naked in front of a lamp. A candle, I should say, not a lamp, a candle. Anyone who stands in front of a candle, the light of a candle, the flame of a candle, while they're naked, this will cause epilepsy. Footnote 55, have a look. Waiting for my computer to pop it up. This comes from Psachim 112b. So we haven't got to like Gemara yet. We're still on 112a. So you haven't seen this Gemara yet, but it comes from our Gemara. A book called Shmiras Guf V'Nefesh, subsection 267.4 states that there's no problem if the flame of the lamp is covered. Right? So they used to have, the kerosene lamps.
With a glass covering.
The glass covering, no problem. If it's not covered, that's when you have an issue. Furthermore, that text maintains that consequently, the stringency does not apply with regard to electric lighting, as the flame is covered. So again, no problem for us today. Continuing the list. Now this comes from the Gemara, which we did learn already. One who combs his hair while it's still dry. He's inviting blindness to his eyes. As well as someone who drinks from the liquid that drips directly out of the barrel. This is also from our Gemara, right? That invites blindness too. Likewise, Likewise, someone who puts on his shoes while his feet are still wet, from water that he washed himself with, which is a unique element that I don't think we saw in our Gemara. Our Gemara just said not to put your shoes on while they're wet. If you do that, that causes blindness. He adds, if it's wet from water that you use to wash yourself. If it's wet from walking in the snow, it doesn't seem like it's a problem. That's the way it seems like from here. Let's see if footnote 57 adds some detail that would explain why there's this extra little addition. Okay. This seems like it should be at the end of the paragraph. Let's see. Footnote 57. Chulin. I thought it was in Psachim.
Basically, it says you don't have to be.
Let's see. With regard to this law, and thus to many others in this section. You see? You see the footnote there? 57. With regard to this law, this is something we spoke about yesterday also. With regard to this law, and thus to many others in this section, the Rebbe, Teres Menachem 5743, volume 1, page 382, refers to Maharil. Maharil is one of the early compilers of the Ashkenazi custom, which is where some of the stuff would have dominated, right? We saw in Rambam, we didn't mention any of these things. So it seems like these things would have dominated in Ashkenaz land.
What do you think FF means after?
And the pages that are going forward.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Like it's citing to page 382
And
the pages afterwards.
Oh, okay.
383. So the Rebbe refers to Maharil, who writes that the makeup of our bodies has changed. Accordingly, he maintains the same danger that applies in previous eras do not necessarily apply nowadays.
It's a very big statement.
Yeah.
Setting a whole
It's
precedent.
that's right. It's kind of like the things we were talking about before, how we aren't as integrated with the spiritual realm as it used to be.
Right.
But nevertheless, continues the Rebbe. Nevertheless, from the fact that the Alter Rebbe quotes this law in his Shulchan Aruch, which is written way after Maharil, we can conclude that this is not so. Meaning to say that you might make the case, well, the Alter Rebbe quotes all this. Okay, Rambam took it out because maybe Rambam is like Maharil, which says, okay, it doesn't apply anymore because our bodies don't react the same way they used to. But the Alter Rebbe is including it in the Shulchan Aruch, which is after the Maharil. So therefore, you might conclude that it's not so, and therefore it is applicable today. The Rebbe, however, notes that the widespread practice is not to be careful in this regard, and explains his practice based on the principle which we quoted yesterday: God protects the simple. Shomer Psoim Hashem. This is a similar footnote to one we had before. It's the same one. I don't think it's the same one. It's a similar one. Shomer Psoim Hashem, which means
who's
that
to say who's simple? Are we
simple? We are all simple. Simple in the sense that the one who just acts wholesomely, simple and wholesome are very interchangeable. Even though the word here is psoim. But it simply means we act wholesomely. We're doing what we're supposed to. We're following the way Jews practice. We're keeping the letter of the Jewish law. And there are things that over time we've neglected. And it's not like a mitzvah type thing being neglected. It's a danger type thing being neglected.
Right.
And God's protecting us against that danger. We had this yesterday as well. So again, that's what it comes down to, I think, just to maintain the practices that people have practiced. Because those are the areas that Jews have kept on doing. And if we keep on doing it. It's a similar thing, by the way, with the famous Tzavav of Yehuda HaChassid. Yehuda HaChassid, there were a group of Jews, which we spoke about in our class on Jewish history, called Hasidei Ashkenaz. 12th, 13th century Ashkenaz. They were called Hasidim, not Hasidim like we have today of Rebbes with from the Baal Shem Tov, but way before that, talking about hundreds of years earlier, a kind of precursor to the Baal Shem Tov Hasidim. And they were Kabbalistically inclined, lived ascetic lifestyle, and they had lots of practices that included strong Kabbalistic influence. Now, some of those practices we still do, and some of them we don't do. And specifically, there's a book called Tzavos of Yehuda HaChassid. Yehuda HaChassid is one of the early leaders of this group. And he wrote a last will and testament, which includes a bunch of practices that a person should and shouldn't do, including some things like, which we do practice, not to shine your shoes on the day you travel, not to not to sleep in a place where there was once a brick oven. Yeah, not to completely ever close a door, like shut a door forever. What were other ones?
Well,
I'm not trying to remember. These are all things, and there too, there's a whole bunch of other things in the list that we don't practice today, and that makes a very similar comment. The kinds of things that Jews have taken upon themselves to follow from this list of stuff, we keep on doing. The ones that they haven't, clearly it's something that's not relevant to us, and we don't do it. Right? Because this is part of a principle, actually, and I'll have to start before you get to your comment, which is when the sages enact something, it only takes effect if the Jews take it upon themselves. We mentioned this in our halacha share. Classic example. When Ezra returned with the returnees from Babylonia to Israel to build the second temple, he wanted to institute that a man cannot learn Torah, say Shema, or daven after having a seminal emission, whether voluntary, whether involuntary, whether he with his wife, whether he wasn't with his wife. If he ever has a seminal emission, no learning, no Shema, no davening unless you go to mikveh. This is what he wanted to do. And it was a way of curbing that appetite. People couldn't handle it, so the entire decree fell apart. Right? And there's no halacha that requires anybody to go to mikveh every time that happens. Many do. Many chassidim do. And some chassidim just go all the time to keep it safe. But not no halachic requirement to do so. It's a classic example of the sages who wanted to institute an enactment. If it's not accepted by all Jews, the enactment kind of falls away. It's not so with halacha. When it comes to halacha, like the Torah says, don't eat milk and meat. Whether all Jews do or don't, the halacha still remains. You have to not eat milk and meat. So a similar thing here, when there's like these spiritual things we're trying to protect ourselves from. So the kinds of things that Jews have continued to do, keep on doing them. So pouring out a little water before we drink, right? Not walking between two women, and so on. But the things that Jews have not maintained for whatever reason, clearly the Rebbe is telling us that God's protecting us from these problems anyway, and if there's no reason to take on these stringencies. That's my takeaway from that footnote and from my general understanding of how this all operates. What do you want to say? Sorry.
Well, I guess there was a more overarching question when we're learning this. Like, this is for learning the Gemara, and then also now we're learning halacha. So the halacha is how we hold. The Gemara could not be, the different opinions.
It could be, that's right. Yeah.
But the halacha is, it's
but clearly, there's clearly halachic precedent for not following all these things because Rambam didn't include it.
No, but hold on. So
Rambam wrote a halachic book, right?
Right, exactly. So I guess my question is that all these halachas, they're not like mitzvahs lo taseh.
It's all about safety.
Right.
And if it's
one mitzvah.
It's one mitzvah, keep safe.
Right.
Now, if these things Hashem is keeping us safe anyway, there's no reason to. Right. These aren't like, that's what I'm saying. It's not like chukim.
Right.
Hashem says don't eat milk and meat. Is there spiritual harm to eating milk and meat? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's irrelevant. Torah says don't eat milk and meat.
Right.
Here it's a question of simply Hashem said keep yourself safe.
Right.
Sages observed the reality and said that's unsafe. Right. So it's a question of safety. And it could be once upon a time it was unsafe, and today it is safe. For whatever reason, either because our bodies changed as Mardil says it, or because of the Rebbe saying it, because God protects us, because Jews haven't practiced it. Right. But either way, the issue of safety isn't there anymore, unless it's the kind of thing that Jews have taken upon themselves as a practice, so we keep on doing it. Because our people have done it for all these years. Okay.
There could be some other reason why Hashem created these negative energies. Apart from Jews, it says protecting Jews from these sort of negative energies. So it sort of begs the question, why are these negative energies? Why do they exist? For what purpose do they exist?
Can't tell you.
It's not really, it seems, because otherwise it's just a contradiction. And on the one hand says,
right.
Be careful, guard yourself from these negative energies. And on the other hand, he says, well, you're
I can't, okay.
I mean, it must have some broader.
I'll give you the honest answer and the speculative answer. The honest answer is I have no idea.
Yeah.
The speculative answer is that these negative spiritual energies aren't necessarily only created to cause people harm.
Right. That's where I was
Right?
going.
They could be agents of lust and desire, let's say.
Keeping other things in check.
Whatever, yeah, or
Whatever
just
it is, I don't know.
they could be agents of just desire, which certainly is an element that's supposed to be created.
Yeah.
Right. I as a byproduct,
I
like
wasn't
for example,
expecting an answer. I
yeah,
guess.
I don't know,
Yeah.
why do lions exist? They cause all kinds of harm. The harm is necessary in certain contexts.
I think that was what I was.
Right, in certain contexts, the harm of the lion is necessary, part of the ecosystem, that they eat zebras and do whatever they do. I don't know, right? But so,
Right. Yeah.
not necessarily does the fact that it have negative consequences in certain realities mean that it's completely useless. God forbid. Nothing God creates is useless.
Right.
Nothing has its function. What it is, I can't tell you. I don't know. Right? So there's the honest answer and the speculative answer.
Yeah.
Right. And like everything in the world, everything that's created with a positive capacity has an equal measure of negative capacity, including these spiritual creations.
Maybe we're supposed to learn about them and harness to see if there's anything positive to it.
Another thing I like to, this is again completely speculative. I like to imagine that some of these negative spiritual energies that used to exist, considering that we are no longer in sync with the spiritual world, and a lot of these spiritual things become more like materialized and naturalized. So what we used to call negative spiritual energy today might be called a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, the person, the Gemara describes him specifically because Gemara speaks of someone who's possessed by a shade, possessed by a person would have like episodes of being possessed by a demon in which he would act out. Maybe that's bipolar today. Right? Or someone's possessed by a demon that causes him depression and anxiety for months on end. Okay, that would be like a mental health issue, right? So in a world where we're clearly interactive with the spiritual realm, then all of your desires and all of your feelings can be directly attributed because you're in touch with the spiritual realm. Oh, this is a godly one. This is a negative one. You can like see it directly. But today we're like much more concealed from the spiritual realm. They all look, quote, natural to us.
Right.
But in reality, they could be. This is just it's really a theory.
But it's
it's not a theory that has no legs. I've read enough to give me some legs to the theory, but it's completely speculative. And if you think it's foolish and you see a commentary that says otherwise, completely disregard everything I just said. But it's something that I like to think of.
I think it's fascinating actually, because you know the conditions have always existed. You know, like let's say mental health, but it just manifests. Our understandings and manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
Maybe at the time, if somebody was, Jekyll one day and Hyde the other, it must be a Ruach Ra that came over him when he was. Or if he was,
or he has random experiences of epilepsy.
Yeah, exactly. If he was, I was just about to say, what if he starts a seizure? Oh, he's been possessed.
Yeah.
Then now we find out. Okay, we don't, hold by any of those.
But they're both true.
Exactly.
They're both true because one's on the spiritual side where they were more spiritually in tune, and one's on the materialistic side because we're less in tune. Right.
We call different names for it.
Exactly, because we're coming from different perspectives.
Right.
Because today we're coming from the materialistic perspective, but it used to come from the spiritual perspective. Right. It actually has in halacha we have cases like this. Like the Gemara, the halacha discusses. Someone who goes through episodes. We had this recently in the 3 Prakim Rambam. Person who goes through temporary insanity, and if we could prove that during time of a sale he was in a state of temporary insanity, the sale is void.
Right.
Right. This is a halachic designation.
Yeah. Also legal in civil law.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. It's right.
For murder.
But okay, it's for all kinds. For all kinds of things. So pleading temporary insanity is a real thing in halacha too.
Yeah.
Which you would have called possessed by whatever.
Right.
You were not in sound mind at the moment you.
That's right.
Did whatever you did.
Yeah. Okay. Going tomorrow, continuing the list of things that are forbidden due to safety concerns. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.